So I've been hearing many stories about like flooding in Lusaka. I didn't know it was as bad as the way it is now.
This is Lusaka, my home city. But today, this is the reality. Flooded streets, blocked drainages, businesses disrupted, and homes at risk. Every rainy season, we see the same problem, yet the solution seems far away. From observation on various social media channels, you find the following top reasons as to why Lusaka experiences floods. 1. Blocked drainages due to indiscriminate littering. 2. Rapid development creating too much runoff water and covering recharge zones. 3. Unplanned settlements. And 4. Poor enforcement by city planners. Do you agree with this?
Hey guys, Juan the Builder here. So today we're going to be discussing flood mitigation. We're going to look at two things. So firstly, we're going to look at a case study, okay? We're going to look at Lusaka and look at the flooding there. And then next, we're going to look at the possible solutions and look at cities where the flood mitigation solution has been implemented. So first thing, let's go to Lusaka.
Now, Lusaka is the capital city of Zambia and was officially founded in 1935. This was 29 years before Zambia obtained independence from British rule. Before Lusaka, the capital was Livingstone, home of the Victoria Falls, or Mosi Otunya as we call it. Back then, Lusaka was just a train station. What if I told you that flooding in Lusaka isn't a new problem, and this problem was already predicted when Lusaka was being established in 1935? The following passage is taken from a book titled Lusaka, the New Capital of Northern Rhodesia, with an introduction by Robert Home. The planning of Lusaka was a prestige project for British indirect rule in Africa during the 1930s in recovery from the Great Depression, and was claimed as an example of British garden city and town planning expertise being applied overseas to its imperial territorial acquisitions. Lusaka soon acquired a reputation as the garden city capital. Lusaka was so spacious and so rich in trees and lawns and brilliant gardens that it looked much more like a garden suburb than a city. The book further states that Lusaka was once called the first planned garden city in Africa. Now, post-independence, in 1971, a former mayor of Lusaka named Richard Sampson published a book titled So This Was Lusaka's. An extract reads as follows. Due to the nature of the area, Lusaka had always been, and indeed still is, a difficult place to drain off the rainwater which fell annually. The years from 1917 to 1926 appear to have been subject to particularly heavy rainfall, as almost annually the town was flooded. The rainy seasons of 1916 and 17 and 1917 and 18 were bad, and the town came to near disaster during the 1925-1926 rains, of which more later. A letter written by a Public Works Department superintendent in 1918 highlights some of the problems. It reads, "The site of the Lusaka's township seems to have been chosen solely for its proximity to the railway siding. It certainly has nothing else to commend it. It is situated on a solid mass of limestone, the surface of which has been hollowed out to varying depths by the solvent action of water, and these hollows have been filled up with bog iron and gravel, which holds water and so will make the ground waterlogged for many months after the rains have ceased. For these reasons, no large permanent building can be erected in the township without expensive foundations." What do you think about this?
Guys, this is a road. Like, I'm crossing a road. I'm on the road. So I've been hearing many stories about like flooding in Lusaka. I didn't know it was as bad as the way it is now. Like, we really need a solution to the flooding in Lusaka. Driving is really difficult, okay? And the thing is, houses are really being flooded. And one of the reasons that causes this is like unplanned settlements and also people not following the approved plans. When I say approved plans, I'm not talking about like the house plan, but I'm talking about urban development. Like, when you don't follow the instructions of the local authority and the plan that they have, You have situations like where people start building houses in like swamps or swampy areas, and they also block rivers. There's a need for a big change in our mindset and also in the infrastructure planning and also in enforcement, especially enforcement, because I believe Zambia has all these plans already in terms of like the city plan and what it's supposed to be. But then the issue is enforcement, because people buy plots, people subdivide their land and sell off, and they don't guide people in terms of what to build, and people don't get building permission. So it's really bad. And when I see videos online, I see people having their houses flooded. Like, can you imagine having knee-high water in your house? Like all your electronics, everything, your furniture, damaged.
Now, in 1978, only 14 years after independence, Kanyama Compound in Lusaka was hit with devastating floods. Heavy rains overwhelmed the densely populated area, destroying homes and displacing people. Lives were lost in the disaster. With nowhere to go, many sought refuge in the emergency community centers that were hastily set up to accommodate the homeless. Public buildings and vital installations were also affected, raising fears of deadly outbreaks of cholera, typhoid, and other waterborne diseases. This was one of the worst floods in Lusaka history, but even today, flooding remains a major challenge.
So there's several types of solutions that can be implemented to avoid this. Aside from just building according to the approved development plans, some of the solutions are construction of levees and canals. Now, the challenge that we have in Zambia is that when we say let's build canals, people will protest saying, how can you build canals and demolish some houses? Because usually that's the case. We can only build canals in places which are actually developed. I mean, the city is developed, so we'll have to demolish a few things. Now, this presents a very big challenge. But of course, with the right stakeholder management and compensation, we should be able to manage. I think everything else is just a challenge. Like when it's a challenge, you can overcome it. It's not the actual problem. The problem is flooding. So for us to solve flooding, we have to overcome some of these challenges, like demolition of houses and construction of canals and levees and all that.
Floods are the most common natural disaster worldwide. Other countries deal with it too, but they have found ways to fight back. One of the best places to learn how to mitigate disasters is Japan.
Let me show you what they've done in Japan to manage like flooding and flood water and rainwater runoff. Let's go.
Zambia and Japan have had good bilateral relations for over 60 years, a relationship which began during the Summer Olympics in Tokyo in 1964. The Japanese government, through the Japan International Cooperation Agency (JICA), has been providing technical assistance to Zambia in various fields over the years. There are reports such as the National Water Resource Master Plan for Zambia that date back as early as 1995 and even further. Most recently, the government of Japan and the government of Zambia are collaborating on the project for the formulation of a comprehensive regional development plan for Greater Lusaka. But we'll talk about this in another video, so be sure to subscribe so that you catch that video. Now that we're in Japan, let's see how they mitigate against floods.
So now I'm in Japan. I'm in a place called Gifu. So let me show you how they manage their floods. So this here is a canal, okay? And that right there is the pumping station over there. So what happens is all the water from all these places over here in terms of the housing and all of that finds its way in some drainages and then finds its way in this canal. Now, this canal is also connected to a levee over there, which I'm going to show you on the other side. So a levee is just an embankment, and it can be natural or man-made. When you make it man-made, it's engineered and designed to retain water, okay? And just prevent water from moving between two places. So it's usually done around streams and waterways. So this serves as a natural stream, and you can see the wildlife also enjoys this space. Some people are able to fish on this space, And then this also requires bridges to be constructed. So we have a pumping station this side, which pumps water that's received from that side, people who live that side. It pumps water from there through these gates into this stream. And then on the other side also, we have a pumping station which pumps water from that side to this stream. So over there, that's the other pumping station, and it's able to pump water into this or the other way. It depends. But usually it's to pump water from that location, all the houses in that area, into this system here. So this is a pumping station, as you can see. They even have security cameras to make sure no one is doing crazy things. So those are the gates, and that's the channel all the way to the stream. So you can see this system is able to accommodate a lot of water, and it runs across the city, around the city. What you'll find is that the people are actually living at an elevation that's lower than this stream. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what it is. So because they're already settled, we can't move them. So we create this levee and this pumping system to mitigate those floods. So the benefit of this system is that they're able to regulate the water. So if there's too much runoff and too much water in this canal, they're able to pump it into the stream. Now, a lot of people, including fellow engineers especially, like to say, oh, there's too much development and people are causing so much runoff because they pave their entire yards and all that. In my opinion, yes, there is a lot of runoff in terms of water that is generated when you pave your entire yard and don't leave green spaces. But runoff can be calculated and quantified, and so can the flow and the discharge. And that can lead to quantification of the flow and also designing the appropriate sized channels or canals and all of that. So it shouldn't be an excuse to say people are developing too fast or they're not leaving green spaces. I think that's not reason enough to not design things properly, okay? So I'm not saying we don't design things appropriately. What I'm saying is the effect of runoff can be calculated and solved. It's just a challenge. It's not the problem. The main problem is the flooding. So have a look at this. This water then moves from here and finds its way, discharges its way into the ocean and another plant or another system downstream. So that way, no one gets flooded. This is just one solution, okay? One way to fix flooding. And I'm hoping we can implement this in Lusaka, in Zambia, and also in other cities. Do you think this is a solution that can work for you or work in your city? Please hit the comment button and let me know. So what ends up happening is that people even use the canal for fishing and recreational activities, but mostly just fishing. But fishing in the canal requires a license also here. Like you don't just go wake up and go fishing, you need a license. So I love that everything is regulated, yeah? In case you haven't noticed, the levee itself, the embankment, is actually used as an access road. So this is one way to use it as multi-use. What happens is the banks can also be used as a play park or as a place for relaxation and recreation. So that's a bridge and this is a river. And see what they've done on the sides. See, this here on the left is a levee and there's a road. And then of course it's engineered in terms of the embankment and the protection works. And this is like a park, so they cut the grass and people are able to run and jog along this river. And these are like temporary places. The whole idea is that these, like whatever infrastructure you make, should have multiple uses, okay, like multiple usage. So when there are floods, the place is not usable. But when it's dry, like dry season, people can use it as a play park for small, like mini golf, and just running, jogging, or just relaxing. So there's many ways to make a place livable. The infrastructure doesn't always have to disturb people, but can be integrated with people. So this is just one particular case of Gifu City. So let's go to another successful case where they have done flood mitigation properly. Let's go to Nagoya on Kiso River. Hey guys, so today I had the honor and the pleasure of being invited by JICA to a seminar where we are we're learning about flooding in Kiso River, okay, and just the flood management and how it's done. So we are starting with an observation and just learning about flood control, flood management. And this training or this seminar, this tour is courtesy of the Japan International Cooperation Agency. Let's see what we're going to learn today. So this is a depiction of a typical Japanese house, ancient Japanese house back in the day. So these people lived in an area where there's like flooding. So what they used to do is they would raise the house, okay, from the foundation. Let me show you. So you see, this is a raised foundation, and then the house was built, and then on the inside they have an area where they evacuate, and in the evacuation zone the house would be elevated also. So let's go inside the house and start to see what a typical farmhouse used to look like back in the day in Japan. Okay, these are the solutions people were making to prevent flood, not to prevent floods, but to survive the floods.
The first thing I noticed when entering this house was that they had a canoe right above the entrance. The farmers adapted to flood situation and were always ready to move in case of emergencies. Now in a Japanese house, the typical location of a guest room is in the southwest side of the house. North of the guest room would be the Buddhist shrine. This one was intricately made of gold and lacquer. What I found interesting is that the shrine was connected to a system that allows it to be hoisted up to a higher section of the house in case of floods. Quite interesting, isn't it? So what I observed was that flood mitigation measures in Japan started a very long time ago, and in the particular case of Kiso River, as early as the 15 and 1600s. As you can imagine, they have had this problem since then and have been improving on the solution to a point where they now have pumping stations, underground canals, and automatic monitoring systems. So what can we learn from Japan? Japan doesn't just fight floods, it works with water. They create flood zones, areas where excess water is safely stored until levels drop. Imagine if Lusaka had a system like this. Here are 4 key takeaways. 1. Efficient drainage and pumping systems. Lusaka needs better drainage maintenance and pumps to move water away before it floods. 2. Construction of levees and flood barriers. Strategic riverbanks and canals can control overflow and prevent damage. 3. Designated flood zones. Instead of water going into our homes, it should be redirected to safe areas where it won't cause harm. And these areas need to be free of any developments or encroachment. 4. Littering has to stop. Pumps and machines work with water and not trash. Therefore, it's important that any intervention that is made is kept free of any trash and litter. These solutions aren't impossible. They just need investment, planning, and commitment. So, what do you think? Should Lusaka start investing in smart flood control like Japan? Let me know in the comments.
So now that we've seen the problem and the solution, let's discuss. So some of the key differences I've noticed about like the Japan case compared to say the Lusaka Zambia case is that they started this flood mitigation measures a long time ago, like before they had all this technology, before they were like one of the top economies. So compared to Zambia, when they started this stuff, most of the people in the areas were like farmers. So these solutions were implemented a long time ago and then improved upon over the years. So they actually told us about having hired some experts from Holland to come and improve the works in terms of the embankments, the slope protection, and just make sure the system works. And also, they had access to financing. So it's not like they just had this money all the while, okay? So in the beginning, they would ask people to pay tax to create these systems, these flood mitigation systems. And then at some point,
they had to borrow money, okay, to carry out these works. Now, something like flood mitigation is not a money-making venture, okay? It's just a loan you take and then you have to pay it back. So not every investment in your country has to be something that, say, is making money. Like, the flood mitigation is very important because it helps people, okay? It's a public service. So it's not everything that needs to be like, say, let me give an example, say a PPP, okay, where someone is going to carry out some investments, then make money and then hand over to the government. Some things are just the government's duty, okay? So that's another difference. So they had access to the financing. They started this a long time ago. They also hired experts from other countries to come and help them. And that's how they've managed to manage this and to maintain it. There's a very big importance or value in learning from those who've gone before you, okay? And when you see people having done this experience already, you don't have to go through it from zero. So in this particular case, the way Japan has done it, it means Zambia can also do it, but we don't have to go through the entire process of starting from zero and learning and all that. We just have to jump to the solution, the appropriate solution which works. So I hope this helped someone. It's not just about Lusaka, it's also about other cities. If you're facing flooding in your country, I think it's time for a group photo, so I gotta go. If you're facing flooding in your country, this is the solution. And I hope I gave my contribution to the solution. Thank you.
If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Because the more people understand the problem, the closer we get to real solutions. I'll see you in the next video.